She is a Palestine analyst at the International Crisis Group. I want to pick up on what Fatin was telling us. It's nothing else but ethnic cleansing taking place in the occupied West Bank in Gaza.
Well, that's correct. I mean, you're dealing with a government here that ran on an electoral campaign promising settlement expansion, annexation, that was running using incredibly inflammatory racist language, that was promising hardline policies against Palestinians. This government didn't elect itself. That clearly spoke to quite a large segment of Israeli society. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. What we're seeing today is a continuation of the exact same policies that Israel was implementing, just on a far more accelerated pace prior to the 7th of October. The West Bank prior to the 7th of October, by all categorizations of the UN and other reputable human rights organizations, was in utter crisis. And now that the world's attention has shifted on Gaza, where we cannot have international bodies closely monitoring the situation in the West Bank due to movement restrictions and economic blockade, the effective collective punishment of 3.2 million people that had nothing to do, by the way, with the events of the 7th of October. Israel has been given a complete free hand to do as it pleases. The level of violence we're seeing is exactly what Palestinians in the West Bank have been subject to for the last 10 months. We've seen it obviously far more brutal in the last 72 hours, but the level of destruction of localities, the intensity in terms of Israeli search and arrest operations, targeted assassinations, arrests, has been exactly the same as what we've seen over the last 10 months.
Right now, Tahani, this is what I fail to understand right now, and this is something that we were discussing with Fatin as well. I mean, since October 7th, there has been an international outcry, especially when it comes to illegal Israeli settlements and settler attacks taking place in the occupied West Bank. Even countries like the United States have raised concerns about these attacks and illegal raids. I wonder, is the international community powerless when it comes to stopping Israel from doing what it's doing in the occupied West Bank right now?
Absolutely not. The international community has failed to put any serious red lines on Israel. Words of condemnation are not enough. They need to be putting actual logistical pressure on Israel. That means halting arms sales. Israel isn't just using those weapons in Gaza, it's using it, it's deploying it in the West Bank. Worse yet, the US's response when we had the uptick of armed resistance in the West Bank, which, by the way, hasn't been something that's just sprung up since the 7th of October or in the last 72 hours. Groups like Jenin, for example, have been around for quite a while. They're considered sleeper cells, if you like, that have now somehow become activated since the assassination of Hania. The Jenin brigades, you're talking about the Nur Shams battalions. These groups have been around for the last 3 years now. And the US response to that, instead of actually looking at the rationale, the root cause of what was bringing these groups to the fore, which, by the way, their members were very clear, it is the occupation. They are a community defense mechanism against an incredibly brutal occupation. Israeli search and arrest operations are brutal. They systematically come with Palestinian fatalities. And so that's exactly the kind of posture that these groups have come up with. And the response from the international community, this includes the EU and the US, by the way, had been to ramp up Israel's capabilities as well as the PA's logistical capabilities. Now, the PA has failed to clamp down on these groups the way that Israel claims that they have, because Israel will not give them the logistics to do so. The US tried to give them armored vehicles last summer to try and deal with this, with the rise of these groups. Israel absolutely would not allow that. They're not even allowed bulletproof vests that are impenetrable to Israel, in case they're impenetrable, to Israeli bullets, because half of the weapons these groups are using are being looted from Israeli military camps or bases. So no, the US has, if anything, encouraged the kind of responses that we're seeing on the ground by not only not putting any red lines on Israel, but also by providing them with the very logistics that they are now using to destroy the localities they're going into, to terrorize the residents that live there, and to basically conduct this campaign of targeted assassinations and arrests.
Tahani Mustafa, thanks very much for talking to us here on TRT World. I really appreciate your taking out the time.